without going too far past what they're comfortable with. If you shoot too far, you know, you're going to end up turning a lot of the general public away.
What's your name?
Nick.
Real fast?
It's immediately relevant, yeah.
I just like to say I used to work for the government in the Bureau of Labor Statistics as an economist, and like I know a lot about numbers and stuff.
Awesome. Cool.
Josh again. Just what people were saying earlier on the student debt thing. Like I know that it is just I know it is a major problem because even just for an undergraduate degree, after most of my tuition was paid, I'm going to be like 80 grand in debt still. Like when there's like 30 grand a year that I'll never have to pay for, I'm still going to be 80 grand in debt. And that's just from an undergrad degree. And I feel like while I like the idea of like a debtor's strike when it comes to student debt, I'm afraid that unless you really make sure that you have numbers that will make a major impact, those that do go forward with it will suffer poorly because of the consequences that can be of it. So you either need to like make sure that everyone's really into it, or the few that do go forward are gonna take a major hit. And that's like I know that's a matter of the whole fear instilled by the system and everything, but it's a legitimate fear if there isn't enough power put forth in what we're doing.
Steve, I think my biggest concern, when I think about why we all are here and what I'm doing is our future. That's like the main focus. Whether it's you're trapped in debt, you're going to be paying for whatever you're paying for, house or student loans, for a long time. For the rest of your life probably. Because pretty ridiculous numbers nowadays. I feel like whether you hold on to your money, it's going to lose value because of inflation. If you have enough money to invest, it's going to get taken away by some scheme like 2008. If you buy things, they'll lose value, and you can hope to sell them back. Like basically, your value's gone, right? Like no matter where you put your value, it's going to be depleted. If you want to live in a house, you're going to have to be trapped to it, and that's a decision you have to make, right? Because if you want to rent the rest of your life, you might have a better chance of, having a better quality of living, unless you're banking, then you're good. But so we're running out of options here. I think that's the main focus. Like we need more options. We need to be able to retain what we work for and have jobs in the first place. Solutions, I'm not sure. I heard the debt strike. The main focus with that is the fear of stopping paying debt. Right. That brings down your credit score. It affects your future just like that. But our question is, once again, what is our future? If there's no future, then we have nothing to fear. You see what I'm saying? So, we have to, understand that. We have to focus on understanding that, because, that is why you are willing to sacrifice,
Hi, I'm Cardinal. Cardinal.
Speak up a little bit. I'm just having.
Sorry, yeah.
It's good. We have noise.
Oh, sorry.
I also want them.
So yeah, my name is Cardinal. It's my first time here. I think. Oh, sorry. One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently is the idea of democracy, and sometimes I feel like democracy was a lie that was created. It's like our country was founded by wealthy landowners who became politicians. And the thing that bothers me is when people say that our politicians are being bought, and it's, they're being bought. Like they started out as, sorry, getting all mixed up. It gets me angry. But yeah, so that's one thing I've been thinking about, the fact that our country was founded by wealth and founded by wealthy landowners. And so the class system was set up from very early on, and so we're fighting against something really old. And really strong and really dug into us. And I'm not saying we should not fight, but I'm just saying we just have to remember and realize that we're facing something big, and we're also facing the victims of the ones in power as well, because their minds have been warped in certain ways. And so, it's a hard fight, but I'm glad to be here.
And what was your name again?
Cardinal.
Cardinal?
Cardinal.
Okay, great. Thanks, man.
Pass.
passes. I'm passing.
So just as far as like enacting I hate to hyper focus around this debtors rebellion thing, but I feel like we're not saying that this is going to occur like tomorrow, right? Like we're at a vulnerable stage right now, and we need to gain critical mass. And really, where we're going to be doing that is maybe 6 months to a year down the line. We're just trying to develop where we're going right now. So we'll get to a point where we're strong and there's nothing to fear. And I just wanted to line up with you. Yeah, I really like that.
Not so much focusing on debt, but focusing on the principles that got us to this point and how to avoid them, in my opinion. Because I know it's like a lot of TED about debt, but not
process. We're going around the circle. And this is like an immediate point of information on something said. Sorry, man.
Could you want a minute?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Take it out of my hand. Okay, just to go quick. Number one, if we're talking about a debt strike, it can't just be Boston. And because there are these occupations all across the country, we got to do outreach to them. Number two, if you're talking about the ideology that brought us into this, or rather the system that brought us, it's called capitalism, and it's got to go. Number three, I like what everyone's been saying, but I wonder if we could start trying to formulate like a basic set of demands, because I love hearing all the grievances, but we got to have a set of demands, and those demands should, in some sense, move past capitalism, and they should move towards us getting power back into our hands, and that's only going to come when we have a new system in place. You can call it whatever you want. I obviously have a name for it, and it's called communism, because that's the solution here. And I'm done. Thanks.
On the point of demand, first I want to echo what Cardinal said about. Oh, I'm sorry. You just okay, great. Okay, great. So I want to echo what Cardinal said, because I think not only is it an important point, we're up against, whether we understand it as capitalism or the history of this country being controlled by basically landowners and slave owners and the ruling class, we're up against something that's not just like the corruption of democracy since 1970 or since 1990 or since Bush. And I think it's important, even as I've looked at the documents that have come out of New York. In fact, they did agree on a document. I think everyone should read it. It's the General Assembly came up a couple days ago with it's something kind of modeled on the Declaration of Independence. But what I was struck by, and though I unified with a lot of what was being said there, and it might even be an interesting template for a kind of unity document, it focused very much on kind of like our democracy, which started out great, getting corrupted. And I think that's a very problematic frame for actually thinking about what the situation that we're in. I understand the drive to be populist and to appeal to broad strata, but I think if as soon as we start compromising our actual vision and understanding, not just using some rhetoric to start a conversation, I think that we end up potentially slipping away from fundamental change altogether. So I think I basically want to echo what Cardinal said, and maybe whether we use Doug's terminology for it or not, to think about how we, not to fetishize the past and fall into a nostalgia just because the present is so fucked up.
Here.
Right on? Yeah. Slightly changing the subject.
Yeah.
One thing that I haven't heard talked about is campaign finance. I think you touched on it briefly, but campaign finance, I think that there's enough people out there that would be a great leader in the government, but they don't want to lower themselves to the point where they have to become the target of all the people with the money. All the lobbyists, and you have to throw yourself down to that level to even get into the leadership of the government. And so you need campaign finance reform, where there's no money involved at all in the elections. And then you won't have people just completely being sold out to different interests.
Pass?
Sure.
Okay. I come from Spain, and I've been hearing you all around. I'm not American, and I don't want to make any claim or tell you something about how to solve and how to behave in this. But I'm very surprised because we may have the same demands that you are having here, and so I'm realizing that this is a global thing. I mean, all the peoples are very corrupted by their governments that are supported by big business, big enterprises. And I think that I'm very surprised. Your claims are very similar to the ones we had then.
Yeah.
global thing. That's cool.
My name is Marty. I would like to echo that. This is definitely a global thing. The time of the nation state is over. Really, it's just an illusion. It's really the corporate states that exist, and we need to realize this isn't just an issue for America. I consider myself a bit of a mystic and an optimist in that sense that, when in doubt, zoom out. That's what I tell myself. And I look at for a unifying message. I see what's happening right now as just another aspect of the fermenting worldwide revolution in thought, a global shift in consciousness that we are all participating in. And when we talk about a unifying message, I believe that when you get down to the root of the problem, it has to do with our relationships to each other and the planet, how we treat our fellow humans and how we treat the planet. So it is completely revolutionary. If we're going to talk about building a just and sustainable future, we need to examine the very assumptions that our culture is based upon, such as every man for himself, kill or be killed. Competition leads to the best solution. We are moving towards a system of cooperation, towards co-creation, towards compassion, and a lot of these fundamentals of capitalism, such as competition, they're just outdated. They're going with the last millennium, and we are right here forming that new culture. So that's where I see this context, and to me, that's a unifying message.
Human universal nation.
There you go.
Honestly, I'm a capitalist. I think that it works, but we're not in a capitalistic system. We're in a corporatistic system. Capitalism implies that there's a free market, which there isn't. And I think the corporations control over our democracy and basically everything, including the rights of the people through the judiciary, the means of production, and the just sheer capital for investment means that we need to find a way to sever their control of society. I don't think we need to eliminate capitalism. I think we need to find a way to make capitalism work for the people rather than just the corporations. And you're right about globalization. There isn't any state anymore. It's all a bunch of multinational corporations who are pillaging everything from everyone across the world. And that's pretty much that's it. And the campaign finance reform, right on. Until you eliminate all sorts of money from politics, the people with money will always have more rights of speech and more power over all of the policies, and they have no oversight. There's no way to kick them out of office. So as long as they remain in control, we have no redress.
I'll be very short. I have two things to say. Like, first of all, going back, I don't want to harp on it, but going back to the student debt strike, if there were a possibility for this, and I think this is going on with Kyle, right?
Boy, keep it just a little louder.
What he said earlier about the fact that this is not going to take place immediately, and I think we need to understand if it did happen, you'd also have to have a support system for the students who are doing this. So there's a way in which they're being protected. It's organized. This is happening through a broad coalition of people who are completely on their side. Second of all, about the demands, I'm split about the question of demands, because on one hand, I want very strong, ambitious demands. I realize others want demands that are going to bring people in and are going to reach as wide an audience as possible, and I completely see that. But I almost see demands as secondary to direct action. Right now, within the global situation, we're in crisis. I think direct action is the most important thing, and I think demands, even though they're crucial to talk about and think about, are almost secondary to thinking about direct action.
Jacob or
Peter?
Behind, or Peter? Okay.
What?
You're passing. Are you still in the circle?
I'll pass it. I'm just listening.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
What? No, I'm not. All right. So I have one thing to say on the point of process, but I have a short thing to say right before that, which is each one of us in this group and in this camp have a responsibility to examine what it means to have courage. I don't mean this as doing some sort of flaky inspirational bit, but courage is a middle path between cowardice and foolhardiness. But if we refuse to do things that put ourselves at risk, if we refuse to engage in things that potentially might ruin our future, then that would be cowardice. But to do things that would intentionally destroy and sabotage this movement before it gets off the ground is foolhardy. So what our responsibility is, as this group, as the 99 is to figure out what the correct path of courage is. All right, point of process. I'd like to propose going around the circle one more time with everybody that wants to come in, and then we try to synthesize the things that we're trying to come up with in terms of values, not demands, but just values, and then have a discussion about how we might be able to move forward in terms of gaining a consensus of the rest of this group. Does everybody else agree that that is a just plan? Let's get a yes with the 1 minute rule,
just
right?
in terms of time, it is 6:10.
Right.
Do we have time to go around again and do any sort of discussion about a synthesis? Because at 6:30 or so, we're going to go into the general.
All right, I'm going to raise a motion. How about a one-sentence value, if you can sum it up? A one-sentence value from each person.
With that?
If people want to do that, but I think that we'd encourage that. I don't want to.
Yeah, but just because we have so little time till 6:30 right now.
I guess I want to make a motion, which is that we not necessarily feel like we have to finish today with a concrete statement. I think this is an important process, a process to talk about strategy, and I want to continue to deepen the conversation. If people want to make a one sentence, either way, I think it should be the 1 minute go round with encouraging people, if you have it, take a stab at.
Okay, that's